Our next guest is here, ready to take your case. Meesha Moulton is back. This morning, we're going to discuss a very important topic, dog bites. Hi, Meesha. Good morning.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Good, good. So, we're really big pet lovers on the blend, right?
Yes.
But the reality is sometimes people find themselves in a pickle of sorts, right, when it comes to dog bites. And it's important for people to understand what to do next. And that's a lot of what we talk about when we have you on the show, right?
That's exactly what we talk about.
Yes. So let's get into it. What are the first steps that people should take when something like that occurs?
So anytime you find yourself in a situation where you've been bit by a dog, one of the very first things you want to do is call for help. So that means calling the police as well as animal control anytime there's an animal involved. Take as many pictures as possible, collect as much information as possible. If you happen to know who the dog owner is, if you happen to know the property where it happened, the address is very helpful as well. And then most importantly, after you collect as much information on the actual scene, you want to go and get medical attention right away, especially when, like I said, there's animals involved. You want to get checked out even if the injury isn't serious.
Absolutely. And then when something like that happens, I think with anything, as we've discussed several different topics on this show with you, it's always a matter of whose fault is it, right? Whose fault it becomes. So who is responsible when something like that happens?
So generally speaking, anytime you're involved in a dog bite, it's usually the owner of the dog that has the most liability. Of course, there's various other factors that we can investigate. We can find out exactly if the property owner is different than the dog owner. Generally speaking, landlords don't really have any kind of liability, but we can definitely look into that aspect and just see if there was some kind of negligence involved with maybe maintaining the property, possibly if a fence wasn't fixed, or if the dog wasn't basically controlled properly. But mostly it's on the dog owner to make sure that they're controlling their animal.
Right, right. And you said because there's many different factors, right? So I'm sure there could be factors where, maybe someone was antagonizing the dog too, right? I think there's like a lot of those. So it's important to really know and have the facts of what happened.
Yes, exactly. And we generally in Nevada follow what's called the one bite rule. So just initially right off the bat, the dog isn't always responsible, but that doesn't mean that you have a free bite either. So there's different factors that we'll go through and just kind of try to determine if this dog's been involved in different incidents, what exactly happened during this situation, and what may have provoked the dog, if anything.
Right, right. And so as far as the bites go, what is a typical dog bite that you see in a lot of these cases?
So sometimes there's situations where maybe it's not anything significant, like I mentioned, not all injuries are going to be extremely traumatic. You do need to seek medical attention and just make sure that you're okay. However, most dog bites, they can cause some damage. I've seen a lot of situations where there's several stitches involved, scar revision, especially in children. You want to get that checked out right away.
Well, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's kind of cover what are some of those Nevada dog bite laws.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, in Nevada, we generally follow what's called the one bite rule. In a lot of other states, they're very strict with it. However, in Nevada, we kind of follow what's called the general rule of negligence. So we want to try to see exactly how the dog owner behaved, if they possibly didn't have the dog on a leash, if they failed to maintain their property. Also, if you happen to have somebody over at your home, you're still responsible for supervising, especially in the case of children or elderly that maybe don't have the ability to always take care of themselves. So those are the type of things that we'll take into consideration to make sure that, was the dog owner responsible or could they have done more? So,
Absolutely. And what sort of compensation, something, like this happens, what is involved there?
So with compensation, you'll get reimbursed for your medical bills. That's the most obvious. And then we'll take into consideration if there's any other future bills that we'll have to take into consideration as well, which is, like I mentioned, maybe scar revision, maybe the inability to work, depending on how serious the injury was. So those are factors that we can go through, and every case is different. It really just depends on what your own individual injury is.
Absolutely. Well, Meesha, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, and I love when we get into it with different tips and advice that you give, because truthfully, when something like this happens, whether it's this or anything everything else we've discussed, you know, the first thing you need to know is what to do, right? So it's so wonderful. Contact Meesha Moulton if you need more information regarding dog bites. Her offices are located on Howard Hughes Parkway. Her phone number and website are right there on the screen.